What if I told you that the very thing that Jesus despised the most was happening right inside the church? That's right, Jesus had strong words for the religious leaders of his time, and they weren't pretty. They wore the robes, they said the prayers, but they were living a complete lie. Sound familiar? Religious hypocrisy isn't just a thing of the past, it's still alive and well today. So, why did Jesus hate it so much? In this video, we're diving deep into the shocking truth behind Jesus' fiery condemnation of religious hypocrisy and why it's a danger to your faith today. Stick around because the truth might just leave you speechless. When Jesus walked the earth, the religious leaders, the Pharisees, Sadducees, and scribes, were the keepers of the law and tradition. They held authority and were looked up to by the people. These men were supposed to be the spiritual guides for Israel, the ones who would point others to God. But over time, something began to shift. The focus moved away from true worship, humility, and love for others to a religion of rules, appearances, and power. The religious leaders had mastered the outward rituals, but something crucial was missing: the inward transformation that Jesus preached about. To understand why Jesus was so angry with these religious leaders, we need to first understand what hypocrisy really is. The word hypocrite comes from the Greek word hypocrites, meaning an actor or a stage player. It refers to someone who wears a mask, pretending to be something they are not. In the context of religion, hypocrisy is when someone outwardly shows devotion, righteousness, and piety, but inwardly their heart is far from God. It's the act of pretending to follow God while living a life that contradicts his teachings. This is exactly what Jesus condemned. One of the clearest moments of Jesus confronting hypocrisy comes in Matthew chapter 23. In this chapter, Jesus calls out the Pharisees with a series of woes. These aren't just gentle rebukes, they are strong words of condemnation. For example, in Matthew chapter 23, verse 27 to 28, he says, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of the bones of the dead and everything unclean. In the same way, on the outside you appear to people as righteous, but on the inside you are full of hypocrisy and wickedness." Jesus uses the image of a whitewashed tomb, which was carefully painted to look pristine on the outside, but contained death and decay within. He's calling out their outward religiosity that masks the corruption of their hearts. They were all about appearances, but their actions didn't match their words. It wasn't just about the rituals or the laws for these religious leaders, it was about control. They loved the power that came with their position. They loved being admired by the people. But Jesus saw right through this. In Mark chapter 12, verse 38 through 40, he says, "Watch out for the teachers of the law. They like to walk around in flowing robes and be greeted with respect in the marketplaces, and have the most important seats in the synagogues and the places of honor at banquets. They devour widows' houses and for a show make lengthy prayers. These men will be punished most severely." The Pharisees weren't just concerned with following God, they were concerned with their own reputation and status. Jesus condemns this love for power, showing that true spirituality isn't about how we look to others, but about our humility before God. Jesus didn't just criticize the Pharisees for their hypocrisy, he pointed to what they were missing, the heart of God's commands. In Matthew chapter 23, verse 23, he says, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You give a tenth of your spices, mint, dill, and cumin, but you have neglected the more important matters of the law, justice, mercy, and faithfulness. You should have practiced the latter without neglecting the former." The Pharisees were so focused on their meticulous rule-following that they missed the more significant aspects of God's will, justice, mercy, and faithfulness. They made a big deal out of tiny matters like tithing spices, but neglected the weightier matters of the law that affected people's lives. Things like caring for the poor, showing mercy, and acting justly. Jesus shows that true faith is not about rituals or appearances, but about living a life that reflects God's heart for justice and mercy. It's about loving others and being faithful to God in the way we treat those around us. One of the most damaging effects of religious hypocrisy is that it drives people away from God. The Pharisees' hypocrisy wasn't just a personal failing, it had a ripple effect on those they were meant to lead. In Matthew chapter 23 verse 15, Jesus says, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You travel over land and sea to win a single convert, and when you have succeeded, you make them twice as much a child of hell as you are." When people see religious leaders and followers putting on a show while living differently behind the scenes, it can lead to disillusionment. The hypocrisy of these leaders not only made their faith unappealing, it made it dangerous. Jesus' frustration with the Pharisees was not about their outward religiosity, but about how it misrepresented God's love and truth. Their actions created barriers to others finding God's grace. So, how does this apply to us today? The dark side of the church isn't just something we read about in the Bible, it's something we still see in the world today. Whether it's leaders more concerned with power than with serving others, or Christians who go through the motions without reflecting God's love in their daily lives, the problem of hypocrisy is still real. But the good news is that Jesus calls us to something better. He calls us to live authentically, to reflect the love and mercy He showed. Jesus doesn't want our fake religiosity, He wants our hearts. In Matthew chapter 22 verse 37 to 39, He sums up the whole law with these words: "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself." Jesus' message is clear. True faith isn't about appearances. It's about loving God and loving others with a sincere heart. While the church has its dark side, we must remember the light of the true gospel. The hypocrisy that Jesus condemned was never the heart of Christianity. Instead, Christianity is about transformation from the inside out. It's about a real relationship with God that changes the way we live, how we treat others, and how we view the world. Jesus hated religious hypocrisy because it stood in the way of the truth. He calls us to live authentically, to embody the love, mercy, and justice that He taught. Christianity isn't about putting on a mask. It's about being real, loving others, and reflecting the heart of God to the world. In the end, Jesus doesn't want us to be actors in a religious play. He wants us to be His followers, living out His love and truth in everything we do. Thanks for watching, and if this message resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it today. Stay blessed, stay authentic, and I'll see you in the next video.